Would you get Ashley Hinkle, please?
Ma'am, if you could raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm your testimony in the matter pending before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, you can have a seat. And ma'am, if you could start by just stating your name and spelling it for the record, please.
Ashley Hinkle, A-S-H-L-E-Y, H-I-N-K-L-E.
And how are you employed, ma'am?
I'm employed at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation in the Forensic Biology Section in Decatur, Georgia.
Okay. How long, or what is your position at the GBI Crime Lab?
I am a forensic biologist. Technically, I'm called a Crime Lab Scientist 3.
Okay. And how long have you been employed there?
It will be 20 years in July.
Can you please explain what your job entails?
Primarily, my job entails examining evidence for the presence of bodily fluids. If those are there, I attempt to attain a DNA profile from the evidence, and then I compare that to a DNA profile obtained from what's called a reference sample, which is a sample collected directly from an individual. I then write reports and peer review the work of other scientists. I'm also trained in a computer program for complex mixtures called TrueAllele.
And we'll certainly talk more about TrueAllele in just a few minutes. Can you speak a little bit to your education and training that qualifies you to perform those tasks that you just described?
I have a Bachelor's of Science in Biology from East Carolina University and a Master's of Science in Forensic Science from Marshall University. I also have extensive in-house training at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and the National Forensic Science Technology Center in Largo, Florida, and I participate in continuing education on a yearly basis, as well as proficiency testing.
Ms. Hinkle, briefly, what is DNA?
DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It's found throughout our bodies in what's called our cells. It gives us unique characteristics, such as the color of our eyes and the color of our hair. And no two people have the same DNA except for identical siblings.
Okay. Can you speak a little bit to how DNA testing is performed?
The DNA testing, the traditional DNA typing service, is a small cutting of evidence is taken. It's added into liquid chemicals that help separate the DNA from the other biological material that's present. A robot is also used to assist in the separation procedure. When the clean DNA in a tube is the end product, and that is quantified to determine how much human DNA and male DNA is present. Those values are then used for the next step, which is amplification, where copies along the DNA strand of 21 locations plus 3 for gender that we use to compare between individuals. These copies of DNA, which are small fragments of DNA, are separated by size on a genetic analyzer, and the output from this instrument is used in a software program called Gene Mapper IDX, where the profile is typed. And the profile at the 21 locations should have no more than 2 pieces of genetic information, or 1 piece of genetic information in the form of peaks. 2, if the information is different, that is inherited from a mother and a father. and just one peak if you inherit the same piece of fragment of DNA from the mother and the father.
And so is that the process by which you obtain a DNA profile on a piece of evidence or from a known reference sample?
It's the same for a piece of evidence, which we call an unknown, as well as a reference sample called a known. The extraction for the unknown samples and the reference samples take place at different times.
Ms. Hinkle, I do want to turn now to TrueAllele. You mentioned that earlier. What is TrueAllele?
TrueAllele is what's called a probabilistic genotyping software. So it breaks down complex DNA mixtures into possible genotypes for individual contributors. The possible genotypes are giving a probability at each of these 21 locations along the DNA strand. This information, the genotypes and the probabilities, are compared to a reference sample of the individual. Then there is a result in the form of what's called a likelihood ratio. An individual can be included, not included, or there is a area between a match and a non-match, which we consider inconclusive.
I think you may have touched on this briefly in one of your earlier answers, but what would prompt one to use TrueAllele, or when is it appropriate to use TrueAllele to analyze DNA obtained from a piece of evidence?
We use TrueAllele when the other methods we have to separate DNA into individual contributors. We're not able to do that. In order to separate a DNA mixture into individual contributors, there must be an imbalance between how much of DNA each person contributed, so that these little peaks that we look at are different in size. This difference in size can allow us to separate a complex mixture into individual contributors. We can also up to 3 individuals in a sample. If there is one major contributor, we can separate that major contributor. But if those methods don't work, then we can use the TrueAllele software system.
Gotcha. Can you talk a little bit about any TrueAllele training that you've had?
My TrueAllele training started around 2017. We implemented TrueAllele in 2018, but it consisted of reading background information on TrueAllele, a small weekly presentations by the individual who developed the software and the company called Cybergenetics. We also practiced with mixtures where the contributors were known. These mixtures consisted of a mixture of DNA from individuals, most of them employed in the lab. So practice and literature review, because this was the first time we were using this software in the lab.
Has TrueAllele been validated by the GBI crime lab to interpret low levels and or mixtures of DNA collected from items of evidence?
Yes, it has.
And has it also been subject to validation studies and peer review outside of the GBI crime lab?
Yes, it has. It's been used by other labs, so there have been other validations before they must use it, before they're allowed to use it in casework.
Do you receive ongoing training outside of anything that you already spoke about as it relates to TrueAllele specifically?
The TrueAllele people, not everyone in the lab is trained in TrueAllele. So our group, we do meet and have, we discuss any kind of issues we have, our suggestions for improvement, and also new literature we read and discuss.
Have you used TrueAllele software to interpret DNA samples?
Yes.
Any idea how many times?
Oh, hundreds.
Ms. Hinkle, have you testified in court before in the fields of forensic biology, forensic DNA analysis, and TrueAllele or probabilistic genotyping in general?
Yes.
Approximately how many times?
Approximately 300.
Your Honor, at this time I would tender Ms. Hinkle as an expert in forensic biology, forensic DNA analysis, and TrueAllele analysis.
Any objection by the defense? No, ma'am. All right. This witness is admitted as an expert in the areas of forensic biology, forensic DNA, and TrueAllele analysis. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Hinkle, before we get into TrueAllele, I know we just spent 10 minutes or so talking about TrueAllele, but before we get into that, I want to ask you about something else. In this case involving a victim by the name of Tara Baker, were you recently asked to review a report that was generated by a former GBI forensic biologist by the name of Cynthia Wood, specifically DNA analysis that she conducted on certain pieces of physical evidence back in 2010?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and if I didn't make it clear, is Ms. Wood still employed by the GBI?
No, sir. She's no longer in the state.
What actions did you take to review Ms. Wood's analysis?
I reviewed her data, and I used it to write the report. So it was just a paper review of what's the information in our computer system that was available to reach my own conclusions and write a report.
And just so the jury understands, what items of evidence were analyzed by Ms. Wood back in 2010?
There was a ligature, which is item 6. There was a knife, item 15, as well as a bloodstain card labeled Tara Baker.
Okay. And did you have the opportunity to review the data that Ms. Wood relied upon to form her conclusions as to those pieces of evidence?
Yes, I did.
And based on your observations of her data and results, were you able to form your own conclusions as to DNA analysis that was performed on both the ligature and the knife?
Yes, I did.
Was a DNA profile obtained on both the ligature and the knife?
Yes.
Were you able to determine whose DNA was present on both?
Yes.
On each of those items, how many profiles were present?
Just one.
And to whom did that profile belong?
Tara Baker.
Did you make a report that kind of summarized your observations and review of Ms. Wood's data from back in 2010 that you used to come to your own conclusions?
Yes, I did.
If I can approach, Your Honor.
Okay.
This is States 166. Is that the report that you generated after kind of going through the process of reviewing Ms. Wood's work?
Yes, it is.
Move to tender, States 166, Your Honor.
Any objection, Mr. Cruz?
No, ma'am.
It is admitted.
Ms. Hinkle, now we will go back to TrueAllele. Were you asked to perform TrueAllele, excuse me. Bear with me. So let's put aside the review of Ms. Wood's report now. In this case, were you also asked to perform certain DNA analysis using TrueAllele that you described just a few minutes ago?
Yes, I did.
Could you please explain what data you received and how you used that data to run it through TrueAllele?
First, I received the data from the second fraction from the rectal swabs, oral swabs B, and oral swabs A that were from the sexual assault kit of Tara Baker. I used reference samples to make a comparison, and those were of Tara Baker, Chris Melton, and Edrick Faust.
And then actually, I think, was there a time that you used TrueAllele to interpret this data but without the known reference sample of Mr. Faust?
Yes, my first report was issued without having the reference sample of Mr. Faust.
And in that first report, I want to talk specifically about the partial major profile obtained in files of Tara Baker and Chris Melton.
Yes, I did.
And what, if anything, were your results?
For the second fraction from the sample from 2I, there was a major contributor. Chris Melton is excluded. He was approximately 300 duodecillion times less probable than a coincidental match to an unrelated person in the population. Tara Baker was also excluded, 1 tridecillion times less probable than a coincidental match to an unrelated person in the population.
Okay. And what was that report dated, Ms. Hinkle?
That report was dated May 2nd, 2024.
Okay. And so, lastly, Ms. Hinkle, I want to turn your attention to a time when you used TrueAllele to analyze pieces of evidence. However, this time with the additional, information that was in the form of a known DNA profile from Edrick Faust.
Okay.
Were you able to run a subsequent TrueAllele test, excuse me, involving items collected from Ms. Baker's sexual assault kit, 2B, 2I, 2J, with the known reference samples of both Chris Melton and Edrick Faust?
Yes, I used the information, the data that was already generated when I wrote the first report. All I had to do was compare it to the reference samples.
Okay. And we'll go through each item of evidence and talk a little bit about the, is it likelihood ratio? Am I getting that terminology correct? The likelihood ratio that was reported for each. Let's start with item 2B, which is the rectal swabs. Can you tell the jury what information that you were able to learn about the second fraction of item 2B?
The second fraction from the rectal swabs, 2B, there was a match between the data from the second fraction from the rectal swabs and Chris Melton. This match is approximately 60,000 times more probable than a coincidental match to an unrelated individual. And the comparisons between Tara Baker and Edrick Faust, between their reference profiles, is inconclusive because meaningful match statistics were not obtained. That's just our way of communicating that their results fell within an inconclusive range, where during our validation we had false matches and false exclusions. So in between this range, we do not report a match or an exclusion.
Gotcha. Ms. Hinkle, based on your training and experience and coupled with the results of TrueAllele on item 2B, the rectal swabs that you've just described, is there anything in your opinion that might be significant in finding someone's DNA being present in this particular piece of evidence aside from that individual engaging in anal intercourse?
Besides from anal intercourse, it is not unusual for there to be drainage from the vaginal area into the rectal area. Also, wiping from one area to another can transfer the DNA so that even though there's not anal intercourse, an individual's profile can show up in the second fraction of a rectal swab.
Is there anything else based on casework that you've done that might be significant in again, finding someone's DNA in this particular orifice?
There's another way for DNA to be transferred from the vaginal area to the rectal area. That would be transferred by another individual. For example, I worked a case, and that has already gone to court, but it involved an individual who was tied down and sexually assaulted a female. And then her girlfriend knocked on the door to find out where she was, and she was dragged in and sexually assaulted. So even though these two females never had contact with each other, the female who was tied down in the bed, the other victim's DNA was found on her.
Ms. Hinkle, I want to move now to TrueAllele analysis as it relates to item 2I. Can you describe for the jury the results of your DNA analysis using TrueAllele on that particular piece of evidence?
For the second fraction from the oral swabbings 2I, there was a major contributor. The match with this major contributor data from the second fraction from the oral swabs and Edrick Faust. This match is approximately 30 octillion times more probable than a coincidental match to an unrelated person in the population. And due to limited data, no conclusive determinations could be made about the minor evidence genotype from the second fraction from the oral swabs. And there were at least 2 individuals in that DNA mixture.
To include, as you just testified, the likelihood ratio, one of those being Mr. Faust, am I understanding that?
Correct. The major contributor was a match 30 octillion times more probable to Mr. Faust.
30 octillion, can you speak a little bit to the size of that number?
Octillion is 27 zeros, so 30 would be an extra zero, so 28 zeros. It's a large number.
Lastly, Ms. Hinkle, I want to move on to item 2J. Can you speak to the results, if any, that you obtained using TrueAllele on item 2J?
For item 2J, there was a match between the second fraction from what was described as oral swabs to Chris Melton. This match is approximately 8 octillion times more probable than a coincidental match in an unrelated person in the population. There was also a match between the second fraction from the oral swabs and Edrick Faust. This match is approximately 70 billion times more probable than a coincidental match to an unrelated person in the population. And there was a third person in this mixture. It was a mixture of 3 individuals. And again, I could not make the results for the comparison to this minor contributor and Tara Baker fell within this inconclusive range.
You may.
Ms. Hinkle, I'm going to show you what I've marked. It's 167 and 168. It states that at 167, a copy of the report that you generated on May 2nd that involved TrueAllele analysis without the known reference sample of the defendant, Edrick Faust.
Yes, it is.
It states 168, a copy of the report that you've just most recently been testifying about, which is your TrueAllele results with the added known reference sample from Mr. Faust.
Yes.
Move to tender both exhibits 167 and 168 at this time.
Any objection?
No objection.
They are admitted.
Just a few more questions, Ms. Hinkle. So, ma'am, based on your training and experience, can you speak a little bit to the amount of time that a forensic biologist might reasonably expect to find DNA present in, say, an oral swab versus a vaginal swab?
For an oral swab, based on the literature I've looked at, 24 hours is around the maximum time. 5 to 6 hours is more credible as far as there still being enough male DNA present in the oral cavity for us to test. As far as vaginal swabs, 7 days has been the reported max. We like to see the kits collected within 72 hours, though, for best result.
But 77 days or a week would be like the kind of the far end?
That's at the far end, yes.
Okay. And can you speak a little bit as to why the detection period for these two places in the body may be different?
The oral cavity individual is going to will spit out the sample, possibly, or brush their teeth, or drink before the sample is collected, and that decreases the detection of the male DNA in the oral cavity of a living individual. For the vaginal area, it survives longer in the vaginal canal, but that does vary. Because it's of the conditions in the vaginal canal, and because of the sperm themselves have a protective layer that help them to survive in the vaginal canal, they are there for a longer time.
Ms. Hinkle, based on your training and experience, coupled specifically with the TrueAllele results that you obtained on, I think, June 11th of 2024, specifically as it relates to items 2I and 2J, do you have an opinion, ma'am, as to whether or not those items were collected from the same part of the body of the victim?
Yes, I do have an opinion.
What is that?
Well, the profiles that were obtained from these two items were distinctly different. One was a major contributor and a minor contributor. So the 2I was at least 2 individuals, a major contributor and a minor contributor. The 2J, though, was at least 3 individuals, and 2 of those individuals were able to match. But there was also the presence of a minor contributor. So if the same cavity is swabbed, we would expect similar results in the DNA typing.
Based on I think you said nearly 20 years that you've spent at the GBI Crime Lab, am I remembering that right?
Yes.
Would it be unusual to you in your training and experience to not receive vaginal swabs if there was suspected vaginal penetration?
It would be
assault.
It would be unusual, yeah, and especially coming from a sexual assault kit of a deceased individual, when they don't know what type of sexual interaction occurred, they will sample the 3 orifices.
And those would be, just to be clear,
oral, rectal, and vaginal.
Ms. Hinkle, those are all the questions I have for you, ma'am. Defense counsel may have some questions. Thank you.
Cross-examination, Mr. Cruz.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hinkle. How are you?
Thank you.
My name is Attorney Amaya Cruz. As you know, we've had the opportunity to speak, and I represent Mr. Edrick Faust. Is it okay, Ms. Hinkle, if I ask you a couple of questions?
Of course.
Okay. We'd agree that you've been with GBI for 20 years. Is that correct?
Almost, yes.
Okay. And you have a supervisory position. Is that correct?
No, I do not.
You mentioned that you oversee, I thought I heard on direct that you said you oversaw or you reviewed others' work. Am I mistaken on that?
That's a process called peer review, and all the scientists in the section, we report DNA services, but we also review the services that other individuals complete, just to have a second set of eyes on the results before they are released.
Okay. But that's pretty much your coworker would do the same thing. It's not a supervisory process.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. In this case, you reviewed 2 oral swabs and an anal swab. Is that right?
That's what they're labeled, yes.
Okay. And is it uncommon to receive 2 oral swabs per GBI policy?
Sorry.
Is it uncommon to receive 2 oral swabs per GBI policy?
2 separate sets. It's not really a GBI policy because it's collected by other individuals, but it would be unusual to receive 2 sets of oral swabs and no vaginal swabs.
Is it possible that the vaginal swabs may have been, well, you wouldn't know. What year did you test these items?
It was recently, so the TrueAllele was in 2024.
Okay. So you don't know if the absence of a vaginal swab is due to a lost?
I can't say. I wasn't there.
That's fair. That's fair. But you have seen cases where you've seen 2, 4 oral swabs, things of that nature?
Usually if there's multiple swabs, they're within the same envelope and not in separate envelopes.
These were in separate packages that you received them, A and B?
Those, yes, separate envelopes.
I'd like to talk to you about the DNA obtained from the second fraction from the rectal swab. Is that fair?
Yes.
I believe your testimony on direct examination, you stated that there were, let's see, at least 3 individuals
Correct.
in the DNA mixture?
Correct.
And Mr. Melton's DNA profile was the only identifiable DNA profile. Is that correct?
Correct.
And 1 in 65,000, that's still a strong likelihood ratio. Is that correct?
It's 1 in 60,000, and based on our validation, any match over 1 in 10,000 times more probable is what we report, because we observed no false matches over 10,000 times more likely. So, yes, it is a match. It's on the lower end, but it's still, based on our validation, should not be a false match.
Okay, that's fair. And you stated that in regards to the inconclusive range, you can't give an opinion whether a person is present or not present there.
Correct.
And is it fair to call Mr. Melton's DNA that was identified in the anus as male second fraction DNA? Is that fair?
It was in the second fraction, yes.
Excellent. And you didn't test this fraction for sperm, is that correct?
Correct.
And is it fair to say that second fraction DNA could be sperm, skin cells, blood, or saliva?
The aim is to obtain only a profile from the sperm, but there can be some crossover of other types of DNA, other types of cells into that second fraction, so it's difficult to say.
Yes, ma'am. Was it difficult to say that the second fraction could be skin cells, blood, and saliva? Or are you saying that's difficult to say?
We're told not to say that it
Well, I don't want you to say anything you're told not to say.
yeah, we don't say it's something unless we know it's something.
Certain.
So I don't want to go out.
Okay, understood. That's fair. That's fair. Are you familiar with the Journal of Forensic Sciences article entitled "The Persistence of Sperm and the Development of Time Since Intercourse Guidelines in Sexual Assault Cases"?
That's one, yes.
Are you familiar with that one?
Article I've recently reviewed.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to show you that document if it's okay. Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions off of that document.
Okay.
Let the record reflect that I'm showing the state what has been marked as Defense Exhibit 52. Let the record reflect that I am showing the witness what has been marked as Defense Exhibit number 52. There you go. And Ms. Hinkle, please take your time, review that document. Once you're comfortable that it is accurate, it hasn't been altered in any way, please look up for me. Okay. Is that document a reliable authority in your field?
The journal is.
Yes, ma'am.
And they would not accept a paper without a review before it's published, so it would be reliable.
Yes, ma'am. I would like you to look at page 588 of that document. I'd like you to look at the last paragraph on the left column.
It's 588.
Yes, ma'am, 588.
Okay.
All right, and then we're looking at the left column and the last sentence on the left column. You'd agree that it states, in general, sperm can be detected in the anus up to 24 hours time since intercourse. Is that correct?
That's what it states, yes.
Okay. And it says sperm can persist for over 2 days after intercourse. Is that correct?
2 days after anal intercourse.
Yes, ma'am. And then at the top, we have Table 8. Do you see Table 8 at the top on the right column? And there were 5 anal swabs, and I'm sorry, we're looking at the 96 hours to 120-hour range. Do you see where there was 5 anal swabs tested in that 5-day range?
There were 5, yes, that were tested after that range.
Okay, and all 5 came back as negative for the presence of DNA. Is that correct?
Yes.
In the middle of that paragraph, and we're on the right side now, it says the expectation, I'm sorry, we're at the, I'd like you to go to the 4th sentence, the first paragraph on the right side of the document. And it starts with the expectation of finding. Do you see that, Ms. Hinkle?
Yes.
It says the expectation of finding anal swabs positive for, and I'll just say DNA instead of that word, at a time since intercourse of less than 48 hours can be considered low. and the expectation of finding DNA at time since intercourse greater than 48 hours can be considered extremely low. Is that correct?
Well, it was expectation of finding sperm greater than 48 hours can be, yes, that's what it says.
In 2 sentences down, it says, our experience at FSI, which is the journal, is that it is unlikely that sperm would be detected on internal swabs beyond a TSI, which is time since intercourse, of 24 hours. Is that correct?
Their experience at the institution that did this study, correct.
Are you also familiar with course indulgence? The Canadian Society of Forensic Science Journal article providing evidence-based opinions on time since intercourse based on body fluid test results of internal samples. Are you familiar with that document?
Yes.
Okay. Court's indulgence. And I am marking this document as defense exhibit Can you say the number of the exhibit that you have?
52.
52. So this would be marked as defense exhibit 53. Thank you. Oh, that is the wrong copy. I am so sorry. That is my copy. Yeah, that's the wrong copy. This is your copy. There you go. Is it okay if I approach you, Dr. Miss Hinkle? I want to call you doctor. Please forgive me. And please take your time and look over that document. And once you've had opportunity to look over it and make sure it hasn't been altered in any way, and you recognize it, you can look up. That article that I just handed you, is that established as a reliable authority in your field of work?
The journal, yes, and they wouldn't accept an article, an item for publication unless it is valid.
Yes, ma'am. 1 second, Ms. Hinkle. Thank you for your patience. And you're familiar with the Canadian Science of Forensic Sciences, the Canadian Society of Forensic Science Journal article providing evidence-based opinions on time since intercourse based on body fluid testing results of internal samples. Is that correct?
Yes.
I would like you to look at Page 61. I would like you to look at the last paragraph on page 61. And would you agree that the first sentence of the last paragraph of page 61 states, in the literature review, the maximum reported time frames from the detection of spermatozoa were 7 days for the vaginal cavity, is that correct?
Correct.
3 days for the rectal cavity, is that correct?
Correct.
And less than 24 hours for the oral cavity, is that correct?
Correct.
Court's indulgence. Were you asked to conduct any DNA testing on hairs found on Ms. Baker's body?
I was not.
Is that a capability that GBI has?
It is one, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have no other questions.
Any redirect, Mr. Bolden? All right.
Ms. Hinkle, you were asked several questions on cross-examination about the detection period. Come over here to the microphone. Of the detection period for male DNA in a rectal swab after anal intercourse. Going back to the case that you specifically referenced on direct examination, where an individual was able to transfer DNA from one victim to the next, in that context, would that reset, or not even reset, would that start the detection period for potentially DNA being located on an anal swab? Does that question make sense?
Yes. I mean, it's possible for an individual to transfer fluids from the vaginal into the rectal area if there is insertion in both areas. So it would kind of restart the clock, so to speak, as far as the time frame.
That's all I have, ma'am. Thank you.
Any, excuse me, any requests, Mr. Cruz?
No, ma'am.
May this witness be excused?
I would ask that she be excused, Your Honor.
Any objection, Mr. Cruz?
No, ma'am.
You are free to go. You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state rests.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take up some matters outside your presence. If you'll go into